So thank you so much, Cal, and heartfelt thanks to everybody for your very rich stories and reflections. And actually I was remembering that I was in a call of time in Oxford. Actually it was a call of time sort of thing for faith leaders. And there was a man there who was from South Africa, and actually he was the Archbishop of Cape Town. He took over from Desmond Tutu as the Archbishop of Cape Town. And he said he grew up in a tiny village in South Africa. And he said there was two career paths for boys. You either became a priest or a gangster. He said, I became a priest and all my friends became gangsters. But it was such a rich story he told, and he was such an exceptional person. Every year, twice, he takes nearly 2 weeks to be in silence, to feel the presence of God in his life, and am I living a life that really is helping my fellow human beings. But as everyone was sharing this morning, I was just thinking that we share a planet with almost 8 billion brothers and sisters. Isn't that incredible? And everyone has a story. Every single person has a story. And listening to the hearts of everyone, it's just extraordinary. Not only 8 billion, nearly 8 billion human beings, but 195 countries. And as we know, each country has its own sort of story and karmic journey, if I can say. There's 4,500 practiced religions in our world at the moment, and 6,500 spoken languages. Many languages have gone defunct, like in this country in which we're sitting at the moment. But often when we talk about that world, it's such an incredible world, isn't it? Our human family, how extraordinary is it? And yet that's what I would call the seen world, the world which we see through our eyes, hear through our ears. We connect with this outside world through our sense organs. But there's another world which I think we're researching, if I can say, over the next few days, which is our inner world, which we can't see, we can't hear, and yet to me is equally powerful, if not more powerful. It's the world of our thoughts and feelings. And the image I've been holding for a while is that, just imagine 8 billion human souls, each one pumping out thoughts every millisecond into this incredible thought soup in which we all live. Some scientists say that the human mind creates 70,000 thoughts in a waking day. I don't know how they grab that number, but we all know there's each one of us, as I'm speaking now, we're pumping out thoughts, we're reflecting, we're thinking. And we create this incredible collective atmosphere, which is the sum total of the quality of our thoughts, in a sense. And we're all watching, we're all observing our world around us unraveling incredibly fast, aren't we? Disintegrating on so many levels. What is feeding that disintegration, that unraveling? I would say it's the collective human mind, the collective human thought, the collective thought soup which is surrounding all of us. And when the thought soup is full of greed, we have this materialistic culture that's destroying our world. When the thought soup is full of ego, and many mention that it's just self-interest. As long as I'm okay, it doesn't really matter. We lose I sometimes feel the most human quality that defines a human being is compassion for each other. When the collective human mind is full of anger, look at the conflicts that are happening, and Liz was talking about, and many of us were discussing. When the collective human mind is full of lack of self-value, when there's 8 billion souls pumping out these struggling thoughts about feeling good about who I am, then if I can't respect myself, will I really respect others? Will I respect society? Will I respect the environment? Really, will I respect anything at all? And sometimes I have the image in my mind that these thought streams, we're all a part of creating these thought streams that are impregnated with anger and hurt and lack of self-respect and ego. And those thought streams are, in a sense, colouring all our systems in the world. They're flowing through into our health, our physical health. We all know that our emotions affect our health a lot. They're flowing through into our relationships. We all know how challenging human relationships are now. They're flowing through into our family system. In a lot of the countries of the world, less than 50% of us have a traditional family which nurtures the heart and cares for us. They're flowing through into our economies, into our politics. And what we seem to do in this world is we seem to then throw trillions of dollars and things at the result of the problem rather than the origin. And I feel what we're talking about here is, I think that there's a collective human mind that's now realizing that I am responsible for my own feelings and what I'm inputting into the thought soup. I have to take much more responsibility. And just looking at our world at the moment, there's 3 conclusions I come to. The first is there's no turning back. There's no turning back. You know, a lot of people want to wind back the clock. The good old days. Who remembers the good old days? You know, the good old days when life was better. I don't think the good old days are going to come back. We're going to see increasing, I would say, the thought soup, increasing social upheaval, economic upheavals, you know, all the stuff we're seeing. The second conclusion, I think, is we need a new approach. We really need a new approach. And, you know, if we just keep thinking in the same way, what did Newton say? Was it Newton or one of those great... Something like Einstein, thank you. Yeah, you know, solutions won't come from the same thinking that created the problem. And that's what we're often doing at the moment. And I think one of the big changes for me in my life when I was starting my spiritual journey, someone said to me, very, very simple question, like, what do you have control over? You know, we're control freaks at heart. I think we want to control. You know, do you have control over politics, economy, business? Of course we don't. Do I even have control over my partner, my children, my parents? No. You know, as we sort of step back, ultimately, what is my sphere of influence in the world? It's really my thoughts, my feelings, my attitudes, my behavior, my actions. And this is spirituality. And what I love about spirituality is it turns the focus of all out there and all the problems out there and trying to fix them. We all want to fix them, but it means that I need to put my hand up and take some responsibility for my own thinking, my own feeling, my own attitudes, my own behavior, my own actions. And I really love that approach because I think we need a new wisdom. And the third conclusion, I need a new wisdom. And we have our intellectual ability, which is so incredibly important to help me understand the world out there. You know, survive and make a living and contribute. It's all good. It's an important ability. But when I feel anxious, when I lose my confidence, when I feel a bit down, does that intellectual ability really help me? I don't think so. We need our ability to connect with others, our emotional wisdom, which is a fantastic ability to tune into others and really know how to read people and how to respond to people. Emotional intelligence. Such an incredible wisdom. Some people have this innate ability, especially mothers, I think, that all people to a certain extent, to tune in and know how to respond. But I think the wisdom we need now is our spiritual intelligence, which, to me, if emotional intelligence is the wisdom to build rich, loving relationships with others, spiritual intelligence is the wisdom to build a rich, loving relationship with me. Look at the world outside, to me, in a most simplistic way, and I love the way how Morley was saying that, science works when we bring it down to simple equations. And to me, the most simplistic way, we have a planet like it is, because there's nearly 8 billion of us with a dysfunctional relationship with self. When I don't have a healthy relationship with me, it creates this thought soup of this disturbing atmosphere. And sometimes I feel that the first relationship in life is with me. And if that is unhealthy, it influences my health, my relationships, my performance and work, absolutely every part of my life. And that's why I think it's just, so lovely that we are, the call of time for me, I would say, is really repairing this first relationship. And sometimes we want to rush and help others, rush and fix others, rush and fix the problems. But I think when we start internally and with my relationship with myself, that's the sort of major step for, I think, contributing to a better world and changing the atmosphere and the thought soup that we're all living in at the moment. And, the call of time, I was reflecting as you were all speaking and hearing, listening to the hearts. What are the hearts saying? I think firstly for me, what I was hearing is to know and experience my authentic true self. Not just know, that's not enough. To me, that's just the first step of hundreds of steps to transform what I know and believe into a feeling and an experience, because then the vibrations I'm putting back into the thought soup will be a different feeling and a different vibration. But the second, to build a resilience and to keep connected to this world, this beautiful world with its 8 billion brothers and sisters, but not be so influenced by it, not be so disturbed by it, not be so... When things happen, sometimes we react and we keep putting back anger and negativity back into the thought soup. So even my reactions are sustaining the atmosphere of the world around me. And I think that resilience, and I think we'll explore it over the next few days, really comes from a relationship with God, a relationship with the divine. I loved what Kim said too, quoting Gandhi, that God doesn't have a religion, a natural relationship, not a sort of, if I can say, a religious relationship with God, but a natural living relationship, which to me is so much the seed of the healing of the self, and then my capacity to contribute to a better world. But thirdly, I really love this thing of benevolence. I really feel it's intrinsic to who we are to be able to give. And I think when we're spiritually devoid, some of us are so intellectually clever, but spiritually empty, we're always subtly looking to fill up the emptiness, the vacant heart inside. And so, I often use the image that my mind is like a vacuum cleaner. A vacuum cleaner takes, so if you give me love, I take it. If you give me respect, I take it. If you cooperate, I take it. But if you insult me, I take that. If you criticize me, I take that. I take in everything, and then we project back to you for everything that's going wrong in my life. So I think the call of time, what I was hearing, is that we need to know and experience ourselves. We need to build up a resilience so that I can really give. And I feel what was common here, what I heard was we're givers. We're people who feel my life purpose is to make a difference, not from an arrogant sense, but you know when you feel you're contributing in a meaningful, purposeful way, how do you feel about yourself? You feel better. You feel you're in tune with what life's purpose is about. I often find that if I'm, if something does have a sense of purpose to benefit, then I lose interest in things. That's my weakness, actually. I vague out very quickly, as all my friends will tell you. My eyes glaze over and I travel somewhere else. But the reality is, we've all come here, we're living in a very, very turbulent world, but we want to make a difference. And I think the turbulence, there's layers of turbulence. And the first layer is really the turbulence in the world, the turbulence in our systems, in our countries, in our politics, in our economies, in society. And that turbulence is affecting everybody at the moment. And I think that to start to really manage that turbulence, to really know and connect with who I really am. And I think it's a really interesting question to ask, what are my thought streams doing? I want to make a better world, but are my thought streams contributing to the old story and the old energy? And when I reflect, I think there's three main thought streams that we generate. There's a sort of a thought stream that is really based on arrogance, I would say. And that thought stream is a very powerful thought stream in our world. And to me, the seed of that thought stream comes from when I identify with just my temporary self, my body. I see myself as a temporary body and all the labels of the body. And when that's my sense of identity, I compare with others and I sort of think, compare, feel better. It's a subconscious thing. And then I generate thought streams if, I feel so easily if insulted, disrespected, not valued, excluded, sensitive. It's like when my ego is dominating my inner world, my thought streams are impregnated with a lot of that sort of energy. And so I'm pumping out that energy into the atmosphere, which is perpetuating what all of us would love to change, in a sense. Or my thought stream of, I don't know the best word, of disheartenment, if I can say, of hopelessness. My experience of talking to so many people in so many places, as I said, I'm not a psychological professional counselor or anything like that. Scratch the surface and sometimes there's so much hopelessness inside of people about their lives and about the future. Really deep hopelessness, I'd say, a depressing sort of state. And I would say that these thought streams are born out of that body consciousness also, where I see myself as a temporary body and all these set of labels. And based on that, I compare and I feel hopeless, inferior, unworthy, not good enough, depressed. A sense of depression, which, sometimes I feel that in psychology, depression is like a sadness that my dream in life to be loved and valued hasn't happened. But in spirituality, depression is like a mourning for the loss of my true identity. So I'm pumping out thought streams into the atmosphere, but the origin of them is my sense of identity. And I think meditation is really exploring the permanent sense of self, the original sense of who I am, that I am the soul. And I think that, in a sense, meditation is researching deeply what that really means. And someone said to me recently, and I often quote it these days because it just fascinated me, that this, now in science they say this body is made up of 40 trillion cells. I don't know where they get these figures from, please don't ask me. But the soul, the consciousness, the awareness, the me acting through this is more subtle than one cell. Because I, the consciousness, the soul, am not physical. My form is a point, and a point really has no size, no length, breadth or width. And so we're beginning to really explore the reality of self that we have forgotten. And because we've forgotten, the thought streams that are creating this world. But when I connect to my intrinsic self once again, I create a whole new thought stream that I push out into the atmosphere of the world. And so when I begin to connect with myself as a soul, the soul is a point, the soul is non-physical, the soul is immortal, the soul can never die, and the soul is eternal, the soul always exists. It's an incredible thing to really reflect on deeply. When I started my BK journey in London, I had a job at Imperial College in London, the London University, in the physics department. I still can't remember how I got the job. It's a pretty bizarre job for someone like me, but they were trying to find the quark at that time. Do you remember when they're trying to find that particle? And I would have conversations, because I was just beginning to meditate on the fact that I'm a soul, the eternal self. And I'd ask the scientists, well, what about the unit of matter, the particle, the atom? And they said, yes, we believe it always exists. And it's like we're going back to the essence, the fundamental essence of who I am. But actually 80% of us know I'm a soul and believe I'm a soul, a spirit, the psyche, the consciousness. 80% of us. But what we're trying to do is convert that into a feeling and an experience. Because when I am soul conscious, I emanate a thought stream of incredible serenity and calm and peace. That sustains me, and it sustains an atmosphere. When someone is soul conscious, they create a whole vibration, a whole feeling. And I think that's what we're talking about, is sort of seeing that I can change the world on many levels, but when I change myself, that is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful way to change what's happening around. And the BKs have a saying, actually, when we change, the world will change. When we change, the world will change. And so the turbulence in the world, I think, if I bring transformation and put out a different thought energy, a different vibration into the atmosphere, I'm contributing to the change. And many people are putting their hand up to do this. So as I think Cal was saying, there's so much darkness on one hand, but there is light as people are taking the responsibility to know, believe and experience the reality of the self. I'm starting to put a different feeling into the atmosphere. The second turbulence, I think, that, I was hearing a little bit about from us, and then we all experience, is emotional turbulence, emotional upheaval, relationships. How important are relationships to all of us? They're just intrinsic to a quality life, and yet it just seems that on many levels relationships are becoming harder and harder, and we're watching the breakdown of the family, that social support unit, etc. And I think sometimes we search for true love. We give our heart, to relationships, and yet there's this massive human dilemma that no relationship is permanent. Whether it's time, whether it's change, whether it's conflict, whether it's death. And spirituality explores that one relationship that's permanent, the relationship with the divine, which is a completely unique relationship, because all our relationships are either soul through the senses with another soul. And we connect through, we listen to each other, we see each other, we relate from a physical being, a soul through a physical body to another soul. But this is a real relationship, as real, absolutely, but it's a soul-soul relationship. It's a whole new learning, it's a whole new learning curve, how to have a close, intimate, real relationship with the divine. Why I feel this is so intrinsic to the change is that this relationship elicits a quality of internal power and internal resilience and internal goodwill and benevolence that nothing else can. And it doesn't have to be religious at all. It's a natural living relationship. But I feel that when we're able to reconnect with the divine, the power it gives me to change myself, not to overreact if someone has a completely different view of the world to me, not to feel angry when someone thinks differently to me, or resentful, or this sort of stuff, but it takes me back into my power. So self-awareness takes me into my peace, and this relationship takes me back into a quality of love and power that I think really helps me deal with the turbulence and support those around me who are struggling. You know, sometimes I have the image in my mind that when I connect with the divine, I feel it's almost like I download a vibe into my mind, a feeling. You know, it's like you live stream an energy, and that feeling just makes you feel so centered, so calm. And that sustains me. And that feeling sustains the people I love around me without speaking. Sometimes, sometimes I think, emotional support, we're all surrounded by people struggling. How do we help? Every day we ring them, we support them, and yet they come back, One day they're up and then they come back again and down. But just by being in that space, my vibration sustains me, sustains the people I love, and sustains the atmosphere. And the third turbulence is sometimes within ourselves. You know how you go along in life, things are fine. Just a situation just triggers a whole lot of unfinished business inside, Comes from left field. You have no idea. It's just like I feel lost, or I feel down, or I lose my confidence, or it just triggers this internal upheaval. And I think the spiritual journey really gives me a context as to how we all carry our story in our subconscious. And sometimes a personality, a situation triggers that story, and this upheaval floods into my head about myself, and I don't feel good about myself, but I may project it back onto people and blame them, all sorts of upheaval. But we sort of begin to understand within the soul we carry this incredible karmic story of our past. And in a sense, the spiritual journey helps me start to bring resolution to the story of my past, which is like a shadow over the present. Sometimes I think the whole of humanity is like that. The whole story of the past is like a shadow over us in the present. And, once, I'm going to stop in about 1 minute, Sister Jayenti, who's coming to Australia in a few months, was telling me she's now the sort of co-head of the Brahma Kumaris. She was invited by the Pope to Assisi, to a gathering of religious leaders. She said it was so lovely. And he wasn't there, but some of his assistants. And she said it was so harmonious and sweet. On the last day, one of the religious leaders reflected on an interaction with another tradition 300 years ago. And that representative of that other tradition then got up, well, you people did something to us 500 years ago. She said it was just incredible, all this embedded stories. We not only have our own story, we have our tradition of all of this is connected to this temporary body in which we're living. So there's a turbulent world, but I think what I was hearing, we're exploring things within me that can deal with my own turbulence and in turn start to put a different energy back into the world. And I feel that every interaction, whether it's with my family, my colleagues, the person in the shop, just a person by a transitory connection, through your face, through your eyes, through your vibrations, we can make a difference. And I really feel that is the light that, we all want to reinvigorate within ourselves. And I think that we're going to try to explore a bit more in the next couple of days. But I'm going to put a pause button on myself. Sometimes it's not so easy, if I'm honest. But any thoughts really? I think the natures Cal and Kim have described so beautifully is just, whatever, if you have any reflections on that, any comments, questions, anything, please feel free, because it's a sort of an open discussion. We're all putting it in the middle because we're all on this journey together, and we come from different places. We are all unique. But what I heard this morning was we all want to make a better self, and that in turn too will improve the world in which we're living. Yes,
Thank you, Charlie. Sorry, I came in early. I can pass the mic, but before I do, I want to give a 2-minute little spiritual rejoinder to Charlie's rejoinder, because I think it's quite nice to... It's like we play a game of processing together by doing this. So Charlie, first of all, you told us about this amazing thing. You gave us an encapsulation of the state of the world, which is essentially, we could say, we are a plague species, in a sense. A plague species whose thoughts are a pollutant to the planet. It's really interesting to think like that, isn't it? Because we tend to think it's always the resultant things. It's this fossil fuel or this thing that we use to make aluminium or that's polluting the planet. But what you're really saying is actually our thoughts are the root cause of the pollution and the defilement of this planet, of the loss of biodiversity and of species, of global warming, of most causes that we can think of that we would jump in to try and save. But we're missing the fundamental, aren't we? Because we are the issue, whether we like it or not. And you alluded to the fact that maybe we weren't always like that, but part of us growing as a species and taking over the planet and multiplying, as they say, go forth and multiply in the Bible, we did that, and look what happened. And so you sort of put up this thing, it's like an impenetrable wall that we've created. But then you're saying actually the wall isn't impenetrable at all, because we need to know ourselves. And the first step to overcoming this is to remember that we are not these thoughts. That we have an eternal self, and you described it so beautifully, this eternal self that actually has the potential to resist that thought-making process or to change the nature of our thoughts, to put a full stop to the negative things that go. And by doing that, to start to build a term you used, resilience, in our lives, and to spread resilience to others, which is very interesting. And then you said, well, actually there's a bit more in this key to the lock. And it's to say not only do we need a good relationship with ourselves, we have to think about what we think of the divine. And if we can come to terms with the fact that there might well be a God in this world, an indeterminable, non-physical being like us, a soul, but not a soul in a body, what sort of a relationship are we having with that soul? And how might that change things? And that leads to us asking ourselves this question that we've already been talking about: who I am, or who am I in this world? That's a really big one for us to think. And then, over time, maybe we have access to a new thought stream, a thought stream of compassion and wellness and healing, and with that thought stream, the possibilities might well be endless. So that's my little rejoinder of your really beautiful response to our, I would call it our collective yearning. And didn't we have an incredible yearning together? I agree with Charlie. All of us have this desire to heal. It was such a theme in how we spoke this morning. Whether it's to heal ourselves, whether it's to say through healing that I can make a meaningful contribution to this world, or whether it's to say that I can look beyond the expectations of my society and by doing that make a life of great profundity. So this is my response to your rejoinder. And now, dear friends, the mic is open. Anything, thoughts from you, Cal, before I start passing the mic around? Great. So questions, reflections. Let's mine Charlie instead of mining Kakadu.
Reflecting on what you said, because you talked about very much learning yourself, and I've learned a lot from the BKs enormously, but if I look back at my life, I've learned so much from other people, and I've learned so much through interactions with other people, and as I said before, observing other people. I was born in a context like all of us, which was quite small, with one way of thinking, one religion, one education. But then I think because of the modern life, we have the opportunity to be exposed to a much wider variety of experiences, of way of thinking, of religion. And I can just say, just through all my encounters, I am a different person. I hope I'm a better person, but I certainly am a much more open person. So I really see the purpose of life also as listen to others, learn, modify your views, embrace a bigger picture than the one you were born with. I love in the Quran, and I have very little knowledge of Islam, but there's a lot of wisdom there. That God said in the Quran, I made you into different tribes so that you would get to know one another. I think it is fantastic. For me, it is the story of my life, is that I started from a very small context where it's all about me, my family, then my school, then my country, and then I learned that my country was divided, had been trampled by everybody else. So even that you have to forgive, because we were German occupied. So if I look at a German person today, to me they're just part of Europe. They are not the Germany that happened. Okay, we learn from the experience, and if my father speaks, he has a different experience. He's 94, so he lived under occupation. But even he's changed. So I just find that life and interaction with people, especially if they are different from us, is the whole purpose. And the idea is, I made you in different tribes so you would get to know one another, which means you can reunite in a certain way at a much deeper level, rather than be just where you come from and what you are from. So I agree with you, get to know oneself, but I've learned a lot about myself through interaction with others, and I'm much more compassionate and open now than I was, when I came out of my tribe. But because I've been listening, because I've been experiencing, because the life of somebody who's totally disabled has confronted me, and I said, what can I learn from that life experience? So I like the idea of going in, but my understanding of myself has gone very much through learning from listening to others. So I think it has to be a combination, because we don't want to be all so self-absorbed that it's basically you keep coming back to that peace that I have within. So it's not against what you've said, but I think I put the balance between the two.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think. Yeah, I mean, total agreement actually with what you say, because, I think there's probably two perceptions of the other, in a sense, because it's intrinsic in the DNA of the human spirit for me, for relationship. But when the relationship with self becomes quite damaged, it flows over into the relationship with others. And the point mainly was that often when I see myself as a temporary body, I see others. And as you were saying, you've been on a journey, you've grown out of your tribe to see perhaps the whole world as a family. But unfortunately, a lot of people see their body, and people who are like me from a similar religion, culture, background, whatever, I feel safe, I feel secure. But when I see the other who appears different, I feel threatened. And it's like, where does that threaten come from? It's often a lack of self-respect. When I lack self-respect, I find it very threatening when people have different views and different perspectives and everything like that. Because I think when I'm really aware of the self, I can see the whole world as a family of souls. And for me, when I was young, I was traveling the world, I kept a diary. And I had this dream. I was pretty idealistic, I still am, and I'm happy to be idealistic. I really had a dream, and I wrote about a lot, that young people would renounce their country, their nationality, their religion, and just be a force for good in the world and go anywhere where they were needed. To break down this sort of, this incredible sense of identity that we hold on to and therefore see the other. Because you've grown into that experience and it's amazing.
Because you can see here.
Yeah, exactly.
50 years ago, you wouldn't have a gap in that.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is happening. We see all the horrible things happening, but there's a lot of amazing things happening.
That's true, absolutely.
There are a lot of people who feel they are citizens of the world, realize what nationality does it really matter? Yes, some people can come out of this, but now because of the internet, and we don't all the good aspects of the internet, that you can learn in a minute about other people, find out a little bit more about the background. But a gathering like this, 50, 60, well, maybe 60 years ago, that wouldn't happen. I mean, that's why I'm so impressed by the Queen in the sense she's an enormous, incredible human being, because she has learned, she's been a continuous presence, but she has gone through so much of challenging her mind, and she said her faith in something continuous is what keeps her afloat. But I think we've gained a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have to remind ourselves that. There are a lot of young people can be exposed, can travel everywhere, rather than just there's a lot of good.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And I think that the whole idea, really, I suppose the point I was making, when I do have a help, because often I sometimes see three sources of love. There's God, there's the self, and there's others. And for many of us, God doesn't, where can I really get love? I may have a belief. For me, often a lot of self-criticism put down. So my one source is others. And some people have this we all have maybe some really beautiful experiences in relationships, and some on the other side horrific, both sides of it. And in a sense, I think spirituality is saying to sort of heal that, to go back and have a functioning relationship with myself and get that strength and resilience so I can sustain quality relationships with others and have that respect for those who maybe are different. I couldn't agree. There's a momentum towards that. It's like a divergent thing, isn't it? Sort of on one hand it seems to be going further the other way, and on the other hand, and even within the Brahma Kumaris, our understanding is we're at this incredible period of time of change, sort of a culture based on the limited identity as a body is sort of, self-destructive in one sense, but a culture, which you were describing so beautifully, of sort of self-awareness and therefore awareness of the others and respect for the other and learning from the other is growing. But it seems to be, when two rivers meet, there's the upheaval, and that's what seems to be happening in our world at the moment.